Well, let's pick up on this point around how you manage money. One of the most important conversations to come out of the incredible devastation of the flooding is how we as a society respond. And in the hours after the flooding, after we realized so many people had died, government said it would do what it can to help. You might have noticed that the immediate reaction from really so many people was that there would be corruption, that this money would be stolen. Now, you'll remember the backdrop to this and why people think like that. For example, at the start of the pandemic, we now know a lot of money was stolen. This was just 2 years ago. Well, someone who's been, well, both a part of our politics and watched our politics for a long time is the former Premier of Gauteng, Mbhazima Shilowa. He's now a columnist at News24. Mr. Shilowa, good afternoon to you, and thank you for giving us time on this long weekend. What does it say about our society when government says we're going to help people, and the immediate reaction is, no, you won't, you're just going to steal the money?
Yes, good morning, Stephen. I mean, it's very bad, I mean, of us to be very cynical of every government move, even where they mean well. But I think it's in part because of the following. Firstly, you know, the apartheid government stole in abundance, unchecked, without any worry. But the thinking was that the new mandarins, we were going to be better than the apartheid government. In some respect, we have been better, but in other respect, in terms of the use of money and corruption, there are sections and areas where we have not been the best shining example. As you say, people think of what happened during the PPPE, but they also think of what happened when Mandela was lying in state and people were already planning how to steal money. But contrast to that, I guess, would be that in terms of the fund, the Solidarity Fund that was established by the government to disperse of resources for the COVID fund, it seemed, at least at face value, that every cent has been accounted for. So we are not just a cynical lot, it's also because we have not been proven otherwise.
So we shouldn't just look at the recent past. You're suggesting we should actually go back a bit further than that. It's not just that we've seen corruption, it's that our parents have seen corruption too.
Indeed, because some of the people who are cynical, it's not just the younger ones. It's also our parents. We had seen that with the Bantustan. Some of them have had drought money stolen. You find that there is drought. It is said that people are going to be helped for their cattle, for maize, but such resources disappeared. Some would have seen that with some of the old councils in the urban centers. So it has been a continuous cycle. And one was hoping that, you know, in a new democracy, we were going to break that chain and not simply work on the base that says, well, all government are corrupt, it's just that some are better at it and others worse, and that we were always going to try and do the best.
I was talking to someone about it yesterday, Mbeki, actually, you'll know him, the analyst. I was talking informally with him about this yesterday, and he made the point, he has a similar view to you, but he made the point that there was one time in our history, in living memory, when many people did actually trust government, and he was going back just after apartheid to the Mandela era, when Nelson Mandela was the president, and he suggested that perhaps then more people trusted government, and perhaps that was the sort of highest point, the highest moment of trust in our government. I mean, what does that say? That suggests that governments in South Africa can get the trust of people.
Oh yes, the government can get the trust of people. He's right that at that time there was high trust in Mandela. But let's not forget that the Sarafina scandal happened under Mandela. And I think that's the time when we lost our innocence. Because instead of punishing those that had, you know, gotten involved in that scandal, some of the people got promoted. And young Mantu Shabalala, who was at that point trying to hold everyone accountable, got a position of deputy minister, and Dr. Shisane was then shifted away. And then, of course, we had our biggest one ever, which is the arms deal. So yes, trust was higher. Even now, I think, when President Ramaphosa came in, people really gave him the benefit of the doubt. And I think that would have been squandered with what happened during the pandemic.
So we talk about this issue all the time. And if we don't trust government, it tells us a lot about corruption. But I wonder if there's another aspect to it that maybe we don't spend enough time on. Mr. Shilowa, you're a wiser man than I. You know, we often talk about South Africa as a nation. We talk about nation building. We talk about being together in our diversity. But without a government that we can trust, it seems to me that that process of building a nation, I mean, you remember how happy we all were as South Africans and to be South Africans during the World Cup back in 2010. I mean, it's only 12 years ago. I remember it very well. But if we don't have a government that we can trust, it seems to me that that process of bringing us all together and creating a nation that we can tell our children to be proud of, that's going to be harder.
I think we need to be able to do both. But it's funny, Stephen, you use the World Cup. It's true. We were all very happy. But I think if you now look back, you'll find that there were other people who were even happier with the money that they made out of collusion in the stadiums and our freeway. So we need to continue to build a nation. We need to ensure that we keep watch on the use of resources. I know it would be easy for the government to say, let's use the Solidarity Fund. Some people will say maybe let's entrust that to the gift of the givers. But I think that is really being short-sightedness. We elect a government so that it can carry out some of the problems with this disaster, because it's one thing to worry about the funds. It's not only the funds that will disappear. You know, people have died. What do you do about the trauma of those people? It's easy to say people are going to be given water. I can see somebody already looking at the tender for water tankers, some of which may not even be delivered. So I suggest that we do both nation building, but we must keep a watchful eye on our government and insist that the government itself delivers on those services rather than at every time taking refuge behind private individuals, because that is unsustainable.
Mr. Shilowa, I really appreciate the time this Sunday. Thank you. The former Premier of Gauteng, Mbhazima Shilowa. Time now.